out here, there's always that tipping point where it's like, am I getting more wet from the precipitation or from my sweat? Have you ever been ski touring or playing in the mountains and struggled with regulating your temperature? Or what about you just can't handle the elements some days? All of this comes down to our clothing systems. It can take a while to figure out a clothing system that works for you. Today, I'm going to show you my clothing system and how I've created versatility in this system to allow me to adapt it to just about any conditions I experience in the mountains. So join me today as we go over my clothing system to create the versatility needed to adapt to just about any conditions that we might experience in the mountains. So the first thing about my clothing system is you need to know where I tend to work, where I tend to play, and how that affects what I wear. So I'm based in the Cascades of Washington, and here we tend to have a lot lower elevation. It tends to be somewhat wet and sometimes kind of warm. So I'm filming this in the end of March. We've had kind of a wet streak, but it's been warm. But it's cold in the mornings. But even midwinter, I use this same clothing system to keep me warm, keep me dry, and keep me comfortable while I'm ski touring. Then a few things about me personally, because since everyone is different, you're gonna have your own system that's gonna work for you. I tend to run warm. Like right now, it is probably just below freezing. I've been skinning for maybe a half hour at a slow to moderate pace. I'm not sprinting up here. And as you can see, I'm in my base layer on top. I warm up quickly when I start to move. It's just how I am. Some people may not warm up as much. So please take that into account when you're choosing your system. Even though I've designed this clothing system for me in the Cascades, I have found and have used this throughout other regions of the United States, and it works just as well there. The cool thing about this is I can always swap other pieces in and out of the system to adjust to certain conditions that I might experience. And let's take this inside to explore each different layer. Like any good outdoor enthusiast who goes outside in the winter, I start off with a base layer setup. I tend to wear synthetic base layers. They wick away moisture quite well. The biggest downside to them is smell. They can sometimes get a little smelly. Merino wool is also a great other fabric to have for base layers. One added benefit is it may not smell as bad after a few days. I would, however, avoid cotton. Cotton will not wick that moisture away. It will hold onto it, and when you're wet, you're going to be cold and miserable. So I avoid cotton at all costs. Now, the one thing I'm not going to show you today is the underwear underneath the base layer. I tend to wear a synthetic underwear as well, and it kind of has the same rules apply as to my base layer. Now, the one thing I will change is that sometimes in the late spring, early summer, when we're skiing up on the volcanoes, I will tend to wear a sun hoodie rather than my typical base layer top. This has a little bit more versatility, maybe a little lighter. I can also put this hood up, protect me from the sun a little bit more. And this is a great layer that I tend to wear even throughout the summer when I'm up in the alpine environment. And it's pretty comfortable, keeps me at the right temperature for what I need. After my base layers, the next thing I'm going to select are my pants. So currently, it's late in the season, a little bit warmer, but it's been pretty wet. I've been running a pretty light shell. This one is from Mammut. It does have the features that I love to look for in pants that I go skiing with. The first thing are vents. I like a good side vent. Allows me to air out a little bit while I'm going up the trail. I also like pockets. I carry things like my avalanche transceiver in my pocket a lot of times. And so because of that, I like to have one pocket that is fully integrated and flat. It will have a tether for my avalanche transceiver, and it generally has some kind of pocket that'll hold it stable so it's not rotating and getting all wonky in there and annoying while I'm skinning up. Some other features that I do like: burly inner cuff. I could wear belts, but these also have a nice Velcro adjustment. Now, when it is colder out, I might choose a slightly heavier shell pant for midwinter that might keep me a little bit warmer when I'm not moving. It might have a little bit of a brushed liner on the inside, or it's just heavier fabric overall. Now onto the top. This is where, with the system that I have found that works for me, I have found a lot of versatility. And one of the key pieces is this. This is an R1, the waffle insulation, so it breathes well, adds a little bit of insulation, keeps me a little warmer. With this one though, I have like a full zip, which I really like for making it easier to take on and off when I'm in the field. There's many times, even the middle of winter here, where I am down to my base layer. And so it's nice to be able to quickly take this guy off, shove it in my pack, and keep moving. And it's also nice when it's maybe a little wet, a little windy. It does keep that off my base layer as I'm skinning up. As you can see, I don't have a lot of natural protection up there anymore. So I like to wear a hat. And one of my favorite hats are just these nice like 5-panel hats with a bit of a brim. They fit on really nice. They're easy to wash and dry out. Also, I can fit a helmet, whether it's a climbing helmet or my ski helmet, on over top of this really quickly. So I'm not swapping headgear out all day if I'm during transitions. One other piece of headwear that I tend to carry, don't always wear, but it's nice to have, is just a buff or neck gaiter. This is super versatile. I could wear it as a light cap. I can have it over my face if the conditions are really gnarly. And so many things I can do with this. And it's one of the pieces of equipment that I tend to carry with me all year just because of its versatility. Also, if I'm not moving too much throughout the day, if I might be stopped, might be teaching, or if I know it's going to be really cold during transitions or just any time throughout the day, I might take a light beanie with me just to keep my head extra warm, keep that heat in. And I found it's a great way to regulate my temperature. So now I get into my slightly heavier insulation layers. These are the layers that are going to really keep me warm for the downhill, during breaks, or if I'm just not moving really fast. So one of my favorites is just a nice synthetic light insulated jacket like this one. And I'll wear this for the down. I might even take this R1 off if I'm like moving fast and I know like downhill is just going to be a little bit. I'll take the R1 off if I don't already have it on, and I'll pop this guy on with a shell. One thing I love about this layer is even if I do get a little warm, it breathes well. And so I can constantly be getting that sweat out away from my body so that when I do stop moving, I'm not freezing. The other thing with these insulating layers is this is where I might swap things in and out depending on the temperatures. So there might be days where it's like just really cold, be below 0 Fahrenheit out there. And this may not cut it for an insulative jacket. So instead of this, I might take along or wear a light down puffy jacket. The nice thing is when it's that cold, I'm not too worried about the wet. And this will definitely keep me warmer as I'm taking a break. Also, midwinter, I tend to carry a puffy jacket with me anyway, just in case. And it's always nice for when we stop moving, I can put it on over everything and really trap that heat in. So a nice light puffy is great to have. Then for those days that I know I'm not going to be moving hardly at all, this is where I'm going to bust out the bigger, heavier puffy. Typically, like when I'm moving a lot, I may never put this on, or I may only bust this out during breaks where it's like, okay, I want to put one jacket on to keep me warm, and it's going to be this one. And the final piece is a good Gore-Tex shell. Here in the Cascades, as I've mentioned multiple times, it gets wet. There can be days where it is 30 to 35 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's just dumping snow, possibly raining, all at the same time, and we're still out in the mountains. So this protects us, keeps us dry, keeps the wind off of us, And it's one of those things that I don't leave home without. And so this I generally will put on over my insulative layers to keep that water out and the snow out while I'm skiing. A few things that I look for in a shell, and some big ones. I want some Velcro cuffs to, depending on the gloves that I have, or if it's just like really gnarly, may want the wrist strap to be smaller. So some Velcro cuffs or elastic cuffs are really nice there. I also like pit zips because sometimes on those wet days where it's a bit warmer, I might have this on over my base layer without any insulative layers, just to keep the snow or rain off of me and so I can stay dry. And out here, there's always that tipping point where it's like, am I getting more wet from the precipitation or from my sweat? And that's always a tricky line to figure out where it is and when we've crossed it. And this is how I typically dress for when I'm going to go out and play in the mountains, whether it's midwinter or springtime, early summer. This is what I'm going to be wearing. Now, when I'm doing summer alpine work, the biggest thing that changes in these systems are my pants. Everything else kind of stays the same, and I've just found it to be a super versatile system where I can bring pieces in and out, change them just a little bit depending on conditions, and it keeps me warm, keeps me dry, and keeps me comfortable. But I found that this system has allowed me to create that versatility no matter what I'm doing throughout the year, so I have less clothes that I need to buy. So I hope this helps those of you who are trying to figure out what to wear, how to wear it, when to wear it. And I'd encourage you all to play with your systems, get it dialed, and stay comfortable out in the mountains. And I'd love to hear any differences that you guys have in your systems down in the comments. So let me know.